It says, okay, we're recording. Okay, so um, I'm talking about um, the philosophical underpinnings of behaviorism and where um, radical behaviorism, Skinner's theory, where the philosophy behind that came from. And so Uh, it's kind of hard for me to I took philosophy like 20 some years ago and it was hard. Like I don't know what it's like. Is the tree outside your window or is it not outside your window? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a big philosophy person. I
Yeah,
couldn't
it's
pass it.
like it was hard. And so um it, it's hard to kind of wrap your head around a lot of this stuff, but um so there's assumptions. The professor today was talking about assumptions are important in everyday life. We make assumptions every day, otherwise we can't function. And he gave the example of we make the assumption that our brakes are going to work, otherwise we would never drive a car. We make the assumption that when we order food, we're not going to get sick and die from it, otherwise we make these assumptions every day, and those assumptions are based on what we know about life. And so um, the assumptions have these roots that all of our assumptions, they're most often not tested, right? We're not going to test our brakes, but they may contradict each other. And so the important part of those assumptions are maintaining our assumptions and making sure that they are consistent um, with the subject matter that we're operating on. And so there's two within philosophy, and he like went back to Plato and Aristotle, and I was like, wow. So this is now on the test. The class I'm taking did not exist under um the fourth edition, and I'm trying to figure out like why the fuck I would actually.
Right?
So the class I'm taking is called the philosophical underpinnings of behaviorism.
Okay.
And so yeah, so there's within philosophy there's two categories of assumptions. There's the ontological and epistemological. And so within ontological, there's idealism and materialism. And you cannot be an idealist and a materialist at the same time. So, and evidently these terms are on, they're officially considered terms that are on the test.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, um, idealism, this is an ontological assumption, and it says the world as we know it is immaterial. Is immaterial. It consists of ideas that we construct in our own minds.
Huh.
That is idealism. And materialism is that the world is made out of real things. Like when we use materialism in real life, it's kind of like, oh, you're so materialistic, you bought that fancy car.
Right.
But it's different. So it's that the world is made out of real stuff that we have experience in, and we it exists independently from our mind.
Okay.
So idealism is that, and I'm trying to wrap my head around it too. So idealism is that like the tree outside your window isn't really there, it's just part of your mind. Materialism is that there are real things in our environment and that exist independently from ourselves.
Hmm.
Okay. So
Okay.
so you can't be an idealist and a materialist at the same time. And I guess that was an important point that he kept saying. Um,
Okay.
okay. And so that was an ontological, and I'm hoping I'm not butchering these terms, ontological um, assumption. And then within epistemological. Okay, so then he went back to Plato. Plato believed that, I'm getting confused here. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's all good.
Plato was an idealist,
Okay.
and he believed that the world existed through this elaborate filtration system. Plato's idealism is that there are pure forms and pure matter, and then it gets filtered into a reality in our mind as we know it. It was this huge filtration system that he came up with.
Huh.
There were pure forms in a netherworld. So it's real weird stuff that we never really have experience with. So there's a tree, but it exists in an alternative reality.
Okay, so it's like a multiverse type thing?
It kind of, yeah, it was super weird. So Plato was super weird. Plato, yeah, I'm just going to remember Plato was an idealist and everything was in your mind. Super weird. There's a super weird question on the test. I'm going to say probably Plato. Aristotle was Plato's student or something, but he didn't believe.
I believe so.
Yeah, but he didn't believe the same things. Aristotle ended up being a materialist. And he said that world is real, and what we know of the world, we know through a direct experience with it. The world is a real deal under Aristotle. I wrote that down because I thought that makes sense. Real deal.
It does make sense.
Yeah. And so, okay, so when we experience inferior copies of objects of the world, that's idealism. Inferior copies of the world is idealism. And when we experience real forms, what Aristotle believed in, that was materialism. Okay. So the question to radical behaviorists is what is the nature of behavior? Where does this all fit in? And so radical behaviorists like Skinner believed that immaterial agents of behavior like cognition, intelligence, emotion, cognition, labels, they were not real stuff because they're not things we can label, or they're not things we can experience, right? So regardless of whether, and I've got a teenage kid that's coming out of the jar, make a run for it. So regardless of, it's not because the kid has autism that he's behaving like that. The label is immaterial and it's not something we can observe, and those labels and things like that are not something that I guess we deal with. Okay. So the ontological assumptions within behavior analysis says that the environmental consequences affect behavior, and that problem behavior is not caused by diagnoses such like autism. So his problem behavior is not caused by the label.
I can agree with that.
Great. So it's like the label that we put on the kid. I'm thinking of it more as like the behavior came first and then the label, not the label and then
well, right, because you would have to have the behavior first. Otherwise, why would you go and have your kid diagnosed with anything, right?
Right. That's how I'm interpreting that. Problem behavior is not caused by diagnoses such as autism. Because I guess if you say, oh, well, he has autism, it's also not a behavior we can change, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. Okay. So I'm at 10 minutes, so I'll go another 5 minutes. So behaviorists within the ontological full assumptions, ontological assumptions are materialists, not idealists, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
We believe that the world is real.
Yes, very much so.
Yes. Okay, so we are materialists. And then there is a whole nother branch of assumptions, that those were ontological assumptions, idealism and materialism. Then there's epistemological assumptions, and within that is rationalism and empiricism.
I know those two. Well, I've heard of those two. Okay. I remember hearing them.
Okay, this is the first time I've heard about this crap. Okay, so the one epistemological assumption is rationalism. And rationalism says, and I'm just going to read the slide, we come to know about the world through the exercise of rational thought. We reflect on a problem, and this rational process leads us to its answer. Okay. Epistemological assumption says, we come to know about the world through our experiences with it. Our answers to problems and questions about the world come through our experiences. So rationalism is like we're rationalizing. It's like an internal process. And empiricism is experience. That makes sense. So epistemological assumptions are empiricism and rationalism. And idealism and materialism are mutually exclusive, but rationalism and empiricism are not mutually exclusive. And I will have to really think about that.
Because you can make rationalizations off of your experiences, right?
Okay. Yes, thank you for that, Casey. I was like, what the hell does that mean? Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. All right, so then it talks about Plato and how, I don't know, it really gets far out there with Plato and I think therefore I am. And
well, I think I'm a millionaire, therefore I have to be a millionaire right now.
Reason reveals human uniqueness. Humankind alone has a conscious mind. Humankind alone can know themselves and understand the meaning of things. I don't know. And so that's where I'm at. I was supposed to be farther along in this class is really hard. It's 8 weeks, and that's probably part of why it's really hard, but it's also there's 4 quizzes every week. There's a quiz on reading, and there's a quiz on keywords and how fast you can go. It only gives you a minute, and you have to do it. So it's good practice. It's good study for the test, but it's tough. So
I'm sure.
Yeah. Do you have any questions about that?
Just those first 2 you talked about. They're very, I mean, I understand they're totally separated, but I don't know. They're confusing.
I think, I'm just thinking of it as idealism is so far out there. The tree's not really outside the window. It doesn't even make sense.
Right.
But
if I can touch it, does that mean it's not there?
Yeah, I don't know how you would come up with it's not really there. But materialism makes sense. It's there. Things are real. It's the real deal.
So can you mix materialism with the other 2?
It seems like you can be a materialist and one of the other 2. Yeah. Yeah. But with idealism, you have to, I don't know. That's a great question. I know what you're saying.